Yeah, hi guys. Hope my voice is clear. Everyone joined, or we're still
Yes,
waiting
yes.
for someone else?
Mustafa is having some trouble in logging in. I'm trying to
Okay.
help him.
Mhm. Apart from Mustafa, Bhuvan, and all.
Yes, bro, everyone join.
Okay. Okay. So in today's session, we'll discuss about VPC endpoint and VPC transit gateway. Okay. So we'll try to cover these two concepts. These are very important, guys. Okay. So these are part of our networking configurations. Okay, you might get some questions on networking configuration as well. I mean, if suppose someone is asking whether you have worked on networking in AWS, then you can say yes, because we have already set up VPC, header blocks, subnets, transit gateways, peering, as well as our VPC endpoints, right? So you can say yes, and you might get questions from these concepts. Okay, so let me share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Recording has been started, right? Yes. The recording was also started. Okay, so we have VPC endpoint. So before getting into this concept, first let us check the architecture of this endpoint. For every concept, there is some architecture, right? I mean, if you'll get to understand the diagram, then it will be very easy for you to understand the behavior of the service, how this service is helping us. Okay, so let me go to the whiteboard. Okay, so let me design one. So this will be our AWS. This will be our AWS account. And in this AWS account, what we are going to do, we are going to create our VPC. Okay. And in this VPC, I will be creating subnets. So this is one subnet. One second. Okay. And then we will be creating one more subnet. So this will be my public subnet. And this will be my private subnet. Okay, so how many subnets do we have? We have two. So for this public subnet, we know that we can use internet gateway. We will be having internet gateway attachments, IGW, right? And then we are going to deploy one EC2 here, EC2. In private subnet also, we are going to create EC2. Okay, so and then we are going to configure routing tables. We will be having our routing table. For this subnet also, we are going to create our routing table, right? So now, for example, assume that we have one S3 bucket. We have one S3 bucket. So S3 bucket, where are we going to deploy? We are going to deploy within our VPC, right? So S3 bucket, where are we going to deploy? We are going to deploy in our VPC. Now, for example, if I want to access my S3 bucket details by using AWS CLI, Okay, from public subnet, will I be able to access or not? Means I have logged into this EC2 and I have set up my credentials. Everything is done. And now I am trying to execute the command AWS S3 ls. AWS S3 ls. Will I be able to access my S3 bucket details, list of S3 buckets from public EC2?
Yes,
Yes.
you have as we have
Bucket
configured,
name
then
also.
Profile.
we can get.
So we have internet connectivity, so I can able to get the details of my S3 bucket. For example, same command if I'm trying to access from my private EC2, can we access?
No.
Why?
No internet access. No, that gateway address.
Because there is no internet gateway, there is no NAT gateway. You cannot access your details of your S3. But in this case, what is happening in public EC2 instance? What is happening? This request is being redirecting via internet. This is not an internal request. This is redirecting outside your VPC over the internet with the help of internet gateway. You are able to get the details of your S3 over the internet. So my requirement is I don't want to use internet, but still I want to communicate with my AWS resources. And I don't want to create NAT gateway, internet gateways. So in this case, we have one concept called VPC endpoint. We have one concept called endpoint. And what this endpoint will do? This endpoint will help us to access our AWS resources privately. Means from this EC2, this routing table will be configured in our endpoint, and this endpoint will help us to access our S3. And this routing table is attached to the EC2, right? I mean, in the same subnet. So with the help of VPC endpoint, what is happening? All our request will not travel over the internet. Means it will communicate using private links. All the communications will be within our VPC. So which one is secure? Over the internet is secure or within the internet is secure? Within the VPC is secure.
Within the VPC.
Right. So always we need to have the communication within our network. We don't want to communicate over the internet because over the internet we might see a lot of phishing, right? So there might be a lot of issues. So we always want to communicate our resources privately only. For that purpose, we can use VPC endpoint, and this endpoint will help us to communicate with our AWS services without any internet. Okay, clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, we can use NAT gateway, that is also private, but again it is going through internet. Okay, so we can use AWS VPC endpoint. So now let us check the setup part. So for this setup, I need to have two subnets. One should be public, one VPC, and two subnets, right? So I need to have two subnets. So let us first check this. So let me go to my VPC. In my VPC, if you see this, we have one default VPC. So I will be using this default VPC only. And in this default VPC, if I'll go to the subnets, you can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 public subnets and one private subnet. So we have this setup as well. Means I will be using one public subnet and one private subnet. Okay. So how to identify whether a subnet is a public or not? You cannot identify with the name. This is just a name you can edit. So how will you identify whether a subnet is public or private?
Route table.
Routing
Route
tables.
table.
If I'll
Yeah.
go to route table, if you'll see the public route table, if you'll see the subnode associations, so we have 5 subnets which are attached, and if you'll see the routing configurations, you will see the internet gateway is attached. Means this is a public subnet. Okay, and if I'll go to my private route table, subnet associations, I can see one private subnet is attached. Okay, and then routings, we don't have any private, any internet gateway or NAT gateway, right? So our VPC and our subnet setup is already done. So now let me go to my EC2. Let me launch 2 instances. One is public, one is private. Launch instance, public subnet. Okay, Amazon Linux 2 image, public EC2. Okay, I will be using key pair and I will be using same VPC. Subnet will be 1A because 1A is public. Okay, this one 1A. And then select existing security group default and then launch instance. So what happened? One instance has been created, right? So this is in pending status. Similarly, let me create one more EC2 in my private subnet. Okay, so launch instance. This will be my private EC2 Linux 2 image. Okay, and then key pair I will be using same key pair VPC. Here I will be using private subnet. So here I have the private subnet 1B. Okay, and I don't want to assign public IP because it is of no use, right? Without any internet, public IP will not work. So I will be disabling this public IP. Existing security group, I will be using the default only, and then click on launch instance. So I have created 2 instances. One is public and one is private. Okay, and then now let me try to create one S3 bucket. Okay, so let me go to my AWS. Let me duplicate this page. Let me go to my S3 service. Okay, here we have one bucket already created, test 0509. Okay, so I will not create any bucket because I am just trying to get the list of buckets, right? So this is okay. So let me ignore this. In your case, if you don't have any bucket, then try to create one bucket. Okay, so now let me go to my public EC2, connect, and then connect, or let me try to use git bash, connect, SSH client, copy, and this is my git bash. I'm pasting here. So this is my public EC2, right? Yes. Okay. Now, if you'll see the version of AWS CLI, okay, you can see the AWS CLI 1.18 is already installed. Means this is the but default AWS is providing the CLI access. So no need to install CLI, right? If you are using your virtual machine, then you might need to install CLI as well. So in my case, since I'm using same AWS instances, so no need to install CLI. This is already available. Now let me try to execute this command AWS S3LS. AWS S3 LS. This is from public EC2. So what is happening?
We have not configured AWS.
Right. So I will be using AWS configure. Okay, and it is asking for access key ID and secret key ID. This kind of access is nothing but programmatic access, right? So we are aware of it. So let me go to my security credentials. Okay, one access key is already there. Let me deactivate or let me delete this. Always make sure that your access keys are getting deleted after your execution, because if with the help of this access key and secret key, anyone can try to log into your account. So make sure you are deactivating your access keys. Okay, so create access key. I understand. Yes, create. Okay, so I got this access key ID. So let me save this. So this is my access key and this is my secret key. Let me save this as well. Okay, so I have got this access key and secret key. So let me try to set up. Okay, and then secret key is this. Which region you want to configure by default? You can use any region. Okay, so in my case, we are using North Virginia, so I am configuring by default as North Virginia. Or else, what will happen? Every time, for example, you want to create in Mumbai region, so you need to pass the region name as well. So you need to tell your credentials that these are the credentials and create in the Mumbai region. Okay, so format, I want JSON format. Okay, done. Now, if I am trying to create AWS S3LA, so what will happen? You can see we are able to access the bucket, right? Yes or no?
Yes.
Because this is a public EC2, via internet, it is able to get the details for us. Now, if you see this find slash iPhone name profile, let me check. cd.aws. Here we have this. So if you go to this path in your machine as well, we have this configuration file. Means when I'm trying to execute AWS configure, this file is getting created in our machine. If you try to do cat config, then you can see the details, the region and all. Okay, and then if you see the credentials, then you can see the access key and secret key. This is what I was talking in the morning session as well. How will you connect with multiple accounts at same point of time? You cannot save the credentials every time, right? So what is happening here? This default is nothing but your profile name. For example, you have one more account, AWS S3 LS hyphen profile, and then name of the profile. In this case, this is default. Let us see. See, this is how you need to pass. If suppose you have one more profile for development, one more account, then what it will do? It will go and it will check the configuration file. See here, it is trying and checking that configuration file. Here it didn't find any configuration, sorry, this one, any configurations related to dev profile. So it was unable to fetch the details for us. Understood? How can we manage this? You just need to pass hyphen profile and then the name of the profile. This is very important, guys. Make sure you remember this or note down this. Clear? So now we know that, okay, with the help of AWS S3 LS command, we are able to get the details because this is a public EC2 and we have the internet connectivity. So you are able to access. So now let me try to access from my private subnet EC2. So how can we log into the private subnet EC2?
Jump server.
So can I use AWS, I mean git bash and click on connect and login? Is this possible? Will this work?
Need to
No,
copy
because, sorry, we cannot log in because here also if you'll see this connect option is disabled because this is a private EC2. There is no public IP address. Even if you have public IP, there is no internet gateway, so you cannot log in. So what we can do is, in my
Bastion or
case,
jump server.
right? So in my case, what I will be doing, I have connected to this EC2, and from this EC2, I will be trying to connect to this EC2. This EC2 can be called as jump
Bastion.
server. Yes, jump server or bastion server, right? So let us do that. So first I need credentials. So where is my credentials? In downloads. At what's the name of my MK? Where I can EC2. Okay. Okay, so this is my PEM-key. Let me copy. Let me create one file, test.pem or any name, whatever you want to give. Paste here. Save this file. And what kind of permissions I need to pass?
400.
600. Chmod 400. Okay, so I have given the 400 permissions. Now let me try to connect -i test.pem ec2-user @ and then the private IP. So let me go to this instance. This is private EC2 and this is private IP 190, right? So let me try to connect. Shit. Let me copy again. Yes. So now we were able to successfully log into our private EC2. Let me switch to my root user. Okay, let me execute AWS S3 ls command. So what will happen? I can unable to find credentials. So let me configure this AWS configure access key and secret key I have already saved. So let me copy. And the secret key is this. Region is East 1 JSON. Okay, now AWS S3 ls. Let us see what is happening. Now it will wait for a lot of time, but it will not be able to get the result for us. Why? Because there is no communication between this private EC2 and this S3. This EC2 don't have any internet access, so it will not be able to travel via internet and get the details for us. So this is not possible, right? So now what I will do, as discussed, I will be creating one endpoint for this particular S3 and attach this endpoint to the routing table of private EC2. Okay, so let me minimize. Let me go to my AWS. Okay, let me go to VPC. Here you can see this. This is still trying to fetch the details for us. Okay, so VPC. If you see the routing tables of private routing table, you can see how many routes are there. Only one route is available, right? So let me duplicate this page. This is my private routing table, guys. Only one route is available. So I will go to my VPC service again. Here we have something called endpoint. So let me click on endpoint. Let me click on create endpoint and then name of your endpoint. Okay, so S3 endpoint. Okay, now you can select which particular category you want to configure. So whether you want to connect from EC2 or from other services or AWS marketplace or AWS services. So in our case, I want to select from AWS services, right? So I will be using this. And then here we have 270 services. So which service you want to create?
S3.
Right. So we want to use for S3. So let me use S3. The moment I'm trying to search for S3, again here we can see different service names. So out of this service name, every service have a different kind of categories. Okay, so if suppose I'm using Express, this will be really fast to fetch the details. Okay, so every service point will again help us with different costing. So in my case, I will be using this service name. Okay, here we have two types, gateway and interface. Gateway will help us to direct attach to our routing table and it will take care of the request. Okay, if I'm using interface, what will happen? It will try to create one elastic IP as well. I mean, we need to specify the IP address. It will try to create one ENI. ENI means elastic network interface. For example, if you're seeing this EC2 and this EC2 instance, okay, so we have these IP addresses, right? Private, public. Okay, if I scroll down, okay, let me come from this way. Here you can see something called network interfaces. If I'll click this network interface, you can see two network interfaces are being created. If you see this public IP, this is my public EC2, this is my private EC2, means for every EC2 instance, we are getting one network interface created. This will help us with the configurations. I mean the IP, how many IPs can we attach? We can attach multiple IPs as well. Okay, so this network interface is getting created for every resource what we are creating. Okay, so now for our VPC endpoint, if you want to create any ENI, we can do that, but in our case I don't want ENI because this is very straightforward process. So let me use gateway. Until then, first let me check the status. It is still pending, right? So and then we can use which VPC you want to create. So we are assigning this endpoint for this particular VPC, means any request from this VPC with the help of these APIs, this will be communicating. Okay, and then we want to create which routing table. So I want to use private routing table. Scroll down, and if you want to control the access, even we can configure policies for this endpoint. Means every request you don't want to process, specific users can only be able to access this. In this case, you can create the policies. For now, I will be using full access and click on create endpoint. So once this endpoint is created, if you see this routing table, if I'll refresh this private routing table, you can see one destination has been added. Okay. So what is happening now? We have attached our routing table of our private subnet to this particular endpoint, and this endpoint is mapped with our S3. So now if you see this EC2, you can see that we were able to get the request now. The communication has been successfully processed for private EC2. So we have different services. You have SageMaker, you have your auto scaling groups. Initially, when these guys have started these endpoints, right, it was only for S3 and one more service. Only two services we were able to create. But as AWS is progressing, they are trying to add lot of services. Clear?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, yes.
Okay, the process is very straightforward, guys. No need to get panic. Okay, just remember that endpoints will help us to communicate securely without any internet within VPC. Okay.
Okay.
Now let us talk about transit gateway. Okay, so we have something called transit gateway. So we are aware, right? So why do we need transit gateway? For example, you have 10 VPCs or you have 100 VPCs, then it will be really difficult for us to manage the configurations. I mean, manual work is always error based. I mean, we might end up with lot of errors when we are doing it manually, right? So you can, if you want to attach 100 VPCs. By the way, 100 VPCs is very large scale. This is not something what we are going to see, but at least we can expect 10 VPCs when working for any project. Okay, even 10 VPCs is also a very large scale only. Still, for example, assume that you have a very big project, it is being used across globe, and you have 10 to 20 VPCs and you want to create the connections between them, then you cannot really use VPC peering. So what we do, we switch to transit gateway. So transit gateway, what it will do, it will create a kind of hub and spoke design. For example, we have Wi-Fi router in the institute, right? So everyone is connected to that router, and from there we are able to access the internet, right? So transit gateway will also help us to create similar infrastructure. For example, transit gateway, what it will do, so I will be creating one transit gateway. In any one region, in any one VPC, I will create this transit gateway. Okay, and here we will be having different VPCs. Okay, so I will be having different VPCs. Assume that I will be using 4 VPCs in this use case. Okay, now what this will do, this will help us to happen. Okay, let me use pencil. So what happened, all the requests will be redirected to the transit gateway. Okay, so any request which is being redirected, okay, any request which is being redirected, I mean all these 4 VPCs now can communicate with each other. When it comes to our VPC pairing, we used to create, I mean, if we have 4 VPCs, 4 into 3, 12 by 2 equal to 6 pairing connections you need to create, right? But in case of transit gateway, we are only creating one transit gateway, and this transit gateway will help us to communicate with the 4 VPCs. Means from VPC A, for example, this is VPC B. A, C, hmm, okay, VPC D. So we have how many VPCs? We have 4 VPCs. So you can create one transit gateway, and this transit gateway will help you to communicate with all the 4 VPCs. The configuration is much simpler than VPC peering. Everything you need to attach to the transit gateway only. All the VPCs you need to attach to the transit gateway, and you need to update the routing tables of every VPC. And your job is done, right? Understood what is transit gateway and how are we doing going to do the connectivities?
Yes.
All the connections we
Yes,
are
sir.
going to create in transit gateway only. This is the only point where we are trying to add everything. Okay, so as part of this example, and one more thing is transit gateway will have a kind of different charging. I mean, once after the session, try to delete your transit gateway, or else you will end up seeing lot of bill. It will try to charge based upon the data which has been processed out of the VPC. From VPC to another VPC, you're trying to communicate, right? So based upon the data processing, it will try to charge. Whereas VPC peering is free of cost. So which one will you use? Transit gateway or peering?
Transit gateway.
But it is charging, right?
Like based on the requirement.
For example, assume that you have 5 VPCs. Which one will you use? Peering or transit gateway?
Peering.
Transit.
Peering.
Peering only.
For example, 10.
Transit gateway.
Transit
Transit
gateway.
gateway.
For example, 9.
Transit gateway.
Transit gateway.
Transit gateway.
No, your manager will not allow you to use transit gateway. He will tell you to, I mean, he will ask you to use peering connections only because it might be complex, but you are there to manage, right? He don't want to get or add some billing to the project. He want to optimize the cost. So there are high chances that you might end up using peering connections only because we will take all the headache and we are going to piece it off with the help of these connectivities. Right? So there are a lot of projects who don't want to get unwanted billing. They want to reduce the bill. So they might not use transit gateway. Okay. So depends. Let us see what will happen when we get on board to the projects. So as of now, I will be creating 4 VPCs. Okay. So I will be using one public VPC. If you'll see this VPC, let me go to my VPC. So how many VPCs are there? We have only one VPC, that is default VPC. So now let me create one more VPC with this CADR. VPC1, and this will be my CADR, and then create VPC. So I've created one new VPC. So let me create one more VPC with different CADR. The CADR range is different here, guys. Okay, 1.0. Sorry, not this one. This one. Yeah, this will be my VPC2, and then create VPC. Let me create one more VPC. This will be my VPC3, and this will be the range. Okay, so what we have did, we have created 4 VPCs. One default was available, so I was using the same, and then VPC 1, 2, 3. Okay, now I will be creating subnets. So I have only VPC default VPC subnets, right? So let me create subnet for VPC1. Subnet name will be VPC1 subnet. Only for my understanding, I am giving this what we call tags. Okay, let me click on create subnet. I am just creating only one subnet, guys. I'll be using same range 10.0.0.0/28. Create subnet. Okay, let me create one more subnet. This time it will be for VPC2, and the subnet name will be VPC2 subnet. Okay, preference, I don't have any preference for now. Let me use the same range 10.0.1.0/28. Okay, create subnet. Now let me create one more subnet. This is for VPC3. So I have created 4 subnets. VPC3 subnet 10.0.2.0/28. Create subnet. Okay. So how many subnets I have created? I have created this public subnet, okay, for default VPC, and one subnet for each VPC. So we have 4 different subnets. Now what I will do, I will try to launch. First, what I will do is I will try to go to my transit gateway and create one transit gateway with the default configurations. Okay, so let me go to my transit gateway. Okay, so this transit gateway you can find in VPC only. Let me check. There you can find this transit gateway option. Okay, click on create transit gateway. So what should be the name? It can be any name, right? So test transit gateway TG. Okay, and then here it is asking for one ASN number. Do we have any ASN number? No, we don't have any ASN number. This ASN number is something related to the carrier. Okay, so I will be using this default number. With companies, you might get the ASN number, what you will be attaching. And these details you can find from our networking team. Okay, so I will be enabling everything. I will not modify anything. And let me click on create transit gateway. So what I have did, I have created one transit gateway. If you see these configurations, it didn't ask about VPC, it didn't ask about subnet, it didn't ask anything. It just asks what type of features you want. I mean, DNS, ASN number, and all. That's it. Okay, so what I have did, I have created one transit gateway. Now, let me create the transit gateway attachment. This is really important for us. So we have 4 VPCs. So I will be creating 4 attachments for 4 VPCs. Okay. So let me go to my transit gateway attachments here. Create transit gateway attachment. Here, default transit gateway TGA means transit gateway attachment. This is for default VPC, and here it is asking for the gateway ID, means whatever gateway we have created in our last step, this is asking for this test-TG. Okay, and the attachment type, we have different VPC, VPN, peering, and connect. So in our case, we are trying to connect between different VPCs. If we have VPN, virtual private network, then you can use this. If you have any peering connections already created and you want to map this with your attachment, then you can go for this. Okay, and then we have AWS direct connect. This will help you to connect with your physical data centers as well as cloud platforms. Okay, so for now, we'll go with VPC and then scroll down. And then here it is asking for VPC ID, means to which VPC you want to attach this. I will be using default VPC. Okay, and these are the different subnets which are available, right? So it is trying to map with these subnets. Click on create transit gateway attachments. Same process I will be creating for other VPCs as well. So create transit gateway attachments. So this will be VPC1 TGA, transit gateway, sorry, TGA, transit gateway attachment. And we have the same gateway ID and VPC, and then VPC ID will be our VPC1. Right? Let me just copy this. So this will be my VPC ID, and here we have only one subnet. Let me click on create. Let me create one more transit gateway. This will be my second VPC, and then ID will be same, and then VPC ID will be VPC2, and one subnet is available, so it is showing only one. Create transit gateway. So we have completed 3. Now let me create one more transit gateway. Please be clear with creating. Okay, so you do not mess up with this. If you want, you can only create 3 for testing purpose. Okay, so make sure you are creating for every VPC ID, and then scroll down, and then VPC 3. Create transit gateway attachment. So what we have did, we have created 4 gateway attachments to our transit gateway. Okay, so 1 transit gateway and 4 gateway attachments for every VPC. Okay, now if you see this, after creating gateway attachments, it will create one transit gateway routing table by default. Okay, if you scroll down here, here we have something called transit gateway routing table. If I click here, okay, one routing table has been created, and if you see the associations, you can see the VPCs which has been added. Okay, I mean, still this is loading because our attachments are not yet completed. See, only two has been completed. So you can see only two connections over there. So let us wait for few, three done. Okay, so let me check this now. So transit gateway attachments, associations, you can see three VPCs are being attached to this routing table. Okay. So if you see the routes, you can see this has been automatically created. Okay. So we haven't did anything. Transit gateway routing tables got created automatically with all the VPC details. Okay. So ignore this for now. Do not touch this. Do not make any changes because already we have the associations, means we are telling where the traffic should be redirected, right? So everything has been created automatically, right? So done. So once this is done, now what I will do, I will try to create 4 instances in 4 VPCs. Okay, so let me go to my EC2 instances. So let me terminate this private one. This is not required. Okay, this public, it is already in our default VPC. So let me just rename this default VPC EC2. So I will not be creating one new EC2 because this is already in the default VPC only, right? So now let me create one new instance, launch instance. This will be my VPC1 EC2. Okay, and here I will be selecting the key pair. In networking, I need to launch in VPC1. So I will be selecting VPC1. We have only one subnet, and this should be public existing security group. This will be default and launch instance. So what I have did, I have created one EC2 instance in VPC1. Now let me launch one new instance. This will be my VPC2 EC2. Okay, Amazon Linux image, T2 micro, EC2 is okay. And then here, let me switch to VPC2. Okay, and enabling the public IP, selecting the existing security group, and done. Launch instance. So I have created one more EC2. Let me create last EC2. VPC 3 and then Amazon Linux 2. This will be VPC 3. Enabling the public IP, selecting existing security group default, and then launch instance. So what I have did, I have created 4 instances. In every EC2, I have one. Sorry, in every one VPC, I have one EC2 instance. Instance state equal to running. So we have 4 EC2 instance, and these 4 EC2 instances are running in 4 different VPCs, right? So now let me try to log into my EC2. Okay, so let me try to log into this default one. Okay, so this is my default EC2. I mean my default VPC EC2. Right? So if you see this IP address 172.31.17.45, 172.31.17.45. Okay, so now I want to communicate from this EC2 to EC2 which is in VPC1. So let me check the private IP. And how to check the connectivity?
Ping.
Ping and private IP address.
Ping and private IP. What happened? 10.0. Let me cross check. think it was 10.0.0.4. Okay, 0.4. Hit enter. So what is happening? Are we able to communicate with another VPCs? No. Why?
No.
We have created the gateway, we have created the attachments, everything is done, but still I'm unable to communicate. So maybe there is some issue with this VPC. So let me try with another VPC.
Static control.
So VPC 2. Let me check with VPC 2. And this IP address is 1.11. 1.11. This is also not accepting. Right? So why? Because all the requests which are being redirecting to these VPCs, we haven't mentioned our VPC where this traffic needs to be redirected. We know that we have one transit gateway created, and the transit gateway will help us to distribute, with subnet and all. But our VPC, this request is been redirecting to our VPC routing table, and our routing table is not aware where this traffic needs to be sent. Right? So I'm talking about the routing tables of our VPC. So what I need to do, I need to go to my routing table. So let me just go to my VPC. First, let me capture the IP addresses, the range of my VPCs. Okay. So this is the range of this one. Let me capture all the 4 range. So this is default VPC, and then we have these 3 VPCs. Okay, so this is our VPC range, right? So what we need to do is you need to update your routing table for every VPC routing table. You need to update all these routing policies. So you need to tell your VPC routing table that this traffic should be redirected. Any traffic from this range should be redirected to the transit gateway attachment, this attachment. And this gateway is responsible again to send the traffic or communicate between different VPCs. Okay. Now let me go to my VPC routing table. Let me go to my routing table. So this is my public routing table for my VPC. And here you can see VPC1. So let me first try to add the names so that it will be easy for me to understand. Default VPC routing table, right? And then here you can see VPC1 routing table. This is VPC1. So VPC1 routing table. Similarly, we have VPC3. This one is VPC3. So let me add this VPC3 routing table. This is VPC2 routing table. So we have routing tables for every VPC. Now what I will do, I will just go to my default VPC routing table. I will go to the routes. I will click on edit. And here we have one route which is already added. Okay, because of the same VPC, right? So this is local. And then let me click on add route. And let me click to copy this. Paste this. And then we have transit gateway, and this is our transit gateway attachment. Similarly, let me add routing for 1.0. Let me add routing for 2.0. This is our range, right? So I am telling my VPC now, my VPC routing table, that any request which is being redirecting on this routing table from this range 0.0 and all, try to send to this particular transit gateway. Clear? So this is very important. Yes. So I have added 4 configurations. Now same thing I will do for remaining routing tables as well. So let me go to routing table 1, click on routes, click on edit, add route. Okay, and routings. So we have the 0.0, right? So I will be using 1.0, and you will be using transit gateway attachments 2.0, and then transit gateway attachments, and then my last CDR. This is this one.
Default.
So so this is the default VPCs one. Okay, so transit gateway attached. Okay, I have added VPC one as well. So what is there? Okay, so let me create for VPC two now. Routes, edit route 0.16. This is my default one. Or shit, I should have added everything. Okay, and then 1.0 is available, so I will be using 0.0, and this will be my transit gateway, and this will be VPC2 transit gateway attachment. See, this is my VPC2 transit gateway attachment, and then this should be 2. Save changes. So I have created 4 for this also, right? Yes, 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah. Now final VPC routing table. Okay, so let me try to add the same details. Add route 2.0 is available, so I'm adding 1.0. Transit gateway, gateway attachments. Oh shit, I should have added everything. Add route. This will be 0.0. Transit gateway. So let me again
Default
add
one
one
not
more.
required.
Yeah, I missed the default. Okay. Transit gateway attachments. Yes. So we have added all the transit gateway attachments to our routing table. Now, if you'll see this, let me log in. This is my public EC2. Okay, now I am trying to log in or access or ping to 10.0.0.4. Still not working. Why? We have added everything. Okay, as per this document, I have added everything. Okay, but still it is not working. Maybe because if you'll see this routing table, in default routing table, our internet gateway is attached. Okay, so we have internet gateway, but for our default, I mean, whatever I have created, there is no internet gateway attached. Okay, so let me try to update. I haven't created internet gateways, guys. So let me try to create internet gateways. So this is for default VPC. This will be my VPC1 IGW. Let me attach to this VPC1. Okay, so I missed this internet gateways. Okay, so now let me create one more internet gateway, VPC2 IGW, and attach to our VPC2. Let me create one more internet gateway. This will be VPC3 IGW. Create internet gateway and attach to VPC3. Okay, done. Now let me again go to routing tables, update my routing configuration. So let me start with one because default it is already added. So let me add from anywhere to my internet gateway. Okay. Similarly, let me add this to VPC2 and VPC3 as well. 0.0 internet gateway. This is my VPC2 internet gateway. And then my VPC3 internet gateway. Even one small misconfiguration will not be able, I mean, you will not be able to communicate, right? So always make sure that you are cross-check everything. Okay, so I have updated all the three routing tables. Now let us see. Ping 0.0. Why this is not working still?
బ్రో అది రూట్ టేబుల్ ట్రాన్సిస్టర్ రూట్ టేబుల్ లో స్టాటిక్ ఎడ్జెస్ వస్తుంది.
Sorry.
అది క్రాస్ రీజియన్ కి ఇది ఇక్కడ అవసరం లేదు. యాక్చువల్లీ ఇట్ షుడ్ వర్క్ బట్
Why this is not working?
రూట్ యూజర్
రూట్ యూజర్ కి దీనికి సంబంధం లేదు.
Can we use curl here, like to check that?
No. Nothing will work here. So let me do one final configuration. Okay, I have did everything which was expected, but okay, let me check. Let me go to my EC2 instances. Okay, security group 886. Here everything is open, right? So same, let me check VPC1 security group. Here you can see port numbers are blocked. So let us try to open the port and check what we can do. All traffic from anywhere. Now can you see this? The moment I have opened the port number, we can able to see the connectivity. Understood? So
Yes.
always check for the firewalls as well, whether we have able to open all the permissions or not. Okay. So I have opened permission for one instance, that is VP default as well as my VPC1. So now let me do the same for VPC2, because if you try to check this 1.11 ping, what happened? Ping 10.0.1.11. This is blocking again the firewall connection. So let me open this security default, edit inbound rules, all traffic, then 0.0 and then save. Now if you see this, we will get the response here. Now it is working, right? So there was some issue with the firewalls. Initially it was with the internet gateways, now it was with the firewall. So same case I will open with VPC3 also. Security, right? Security group. All traffic 0.0, save changes. Okay, so we have tested VPC1 from default VPC. I'm able to communicate to VPC1, VPC2, and now let me check for VPC3. So let me first get the IP address of VPC3. Instance, this is 2.11, right? So let me try to ping 2.11. So still we are able to get the response. Got it? So this is how you need to create your gateway, and you need to create your gateway attachments and update in the VPC routing tables. So this is from default VPC. Now, if you observe this, I said that we need to create one gateway and you can communicate between any VPC. So from VPC A, I am able to communicate to all the different VPCs. Right. So now let me test with VPC B. Okay, means in our case it is VPC 1. That's why let me log into this instance and check from here, can I able to communicate or not? I am trying to communicate to default VPC. Let me copy this. Okay, so ping and then paste. See, still we are able to communicate. Means from every VPC you can communicate to another VPCs. No need to create some attachments again. Clear?
Yes, yes.
So this is how you need to set up your transit gateways. If you have cross region, then the concept is same, but there might be some difference. I mean, there is some difference in the peering connections. You need to first request for the source and then you need to go for the acceptor. But you need to
Yes, we
create
need
the
to establish a
attachments
peering
and you need to establish the acceptor and requesters. Okay. So if you check for another EC2 IP, even this time this will be working. Clear?
Yes, yes.
Chalo. I think we are good with this, and with this, we are going to stop our AWS for now. Okay, from tomorrow, we will be having sessions on Jenkins. Okay, so let me stop this recording.